Hi guys, in today's episode of the Breaking Muscle podcast, I am joined by Dan John. Dan is an athlete, coach, teacher and writer. He's been lifting and throwing for about 50 years and is still going strong in his 60s. He's also the author of one of my favourite books, Never Let Go. Today we're going to pick Dan's brains to help guide you to make smart decisions about your own training, regardless of if you're a complete beginner or a seasoned veteran. Dan, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks so much. We had a little technical hiccup, but it's good to be here. Yeah.
Well, I'm very relieved that you replied to me that time. For those listening, I went through that whole intro once and got just a blank look, no audio, nothing coming back. So hopefully those little gremlins are out of the way. Dan, as I said off air before we started recording, I'd love to speak to you about the different phases of a career. Am I right in thinking you're 63?
63.
63.
I've been lifting weights since 1965. Coaching since 79. So yeah. I've got some water under that bridge there.
Yeah, exactly. You've been doing this a while. Got some experience. Probably made some mistakes, which maybe we'll look into, and learn lots of lessons along the way. But the other thing is, I believe you're still training 4 or 5 days a week most weeks. Is that correct? 5 days a week. Still putting up good numbers, performing well. Your priorities maybe have shifted a little bit now. I'm guessing your lifting, of course, age 63 isn't the same as when you were 18, 19, 20. But nor should it. But there are probably some key principles that do span the whole thing. So maybe if you could give us a little bit of insight about how you've transitioned, and then maybe we'll be able to see what, looking back, you could have changed, or what you would recommend to someone else coming into this game now, looking to, if they were mapping out their perfect lifting career, age 16, first time they touch a weight until they're 80, 90, still going.
Tom, it might be easier if we started off with the perfect model and then maybe brought in what I did, and maybe we could discuss what I did right and what I did wrong. And then,
absolutely.
Okay, so the perfect model, there's basically 2 tracks you want to do as a kid. And let's go from 1 or 2 years of age to about 15 or so. Does that sound okay?
Mm-hmm.
And Epstein did a nice job in his book, Range, talking about that the 10,000 hour rule and all that, it really only works in 3 disciplines. And those disciplines are chess, golf, which is the only sport, and classical music, classical instruments. And the reason those work, so that's why if you want to do early specialization, that's it. Doesn't work anywhere else. But the reason those 3 work is those 3 disciplines all have instant feedback. So if you hit a bad golf shot, the feedback is instant. The club, where the club head was, you get it right. That was wrong. In classical music, I'm certainly no expert, but I know when you got it wrong. I know when you got it wrong. So the feedback. And in chess, of course, you make a mistake and there might be literally books written on a better choice.
Yes.
Other than that, I don't think there's a lot of wisdom in early specialization. In fact, I think you're probably an idiot.
Yes.
Either as a parent, a coach, or an athlete. Yuri Sadiq, the world record holder in the hammer, told me one time that elite means that you improve every single year.
Okay.
Well, that's harder to measure in rugby, but in weightlifting, track and field, swimming, those would be probably the 3, any of the weightlifting disciplines, those would be the 3 that would work.
Yes.
Also about early specialization, we had this great American died not long ago, Tommy Kono. He was not only multiple gold medals at the Olympics, but also Mr. Universe. He believed if you weren't elite in 2 or 3 years, you're in the wrong sport. Okay. My friend John Powell, who was the world record holder in discus, said, if you aren't world class in 3 years, you're not going to ever make it. And so real quick, what I'm trying to get across. So before we even get to talk about specifics, and I have something, if you're going to have early specialization, your choices are very narrow. And trust me, there's somebody else doing there's some kid in China who's spending 19 hours a day on his cello. And so I'm just saying, early specialization is, you got the Russians with the chess. It's going to be difficult. and there's going to be a kid like Tiger Woods who was on national television when he was 2, showing off his putting when he was 2. So push those all to the side, if in my humble opinion. So early specialization works in 3 disciplines. Now let's just shove it out of the way. I don't want to hear about it anymore. And if you do mention it, Tom, I'll get on a plane and slap you in the back of the head, because I don't want to hear about that anymore. But I would strongly recommend the work of, it's his last name was Herbert, but it was pronounced Herbert. 1910, the kind of the early physical education guy. And I would add a couple of things, but he was a big believer that you should learn to, evade all those things that are good for evading. So that would be running, jumping over stuff, parkour. Well, let's be honest. Learning to ride a bicycle. You want to learn to ride a bicycle at 5, not 50. You want to learn to swim at 5, not 50. So evade, fight back, throwing things, fighting. All those basic things are what I think the young athlete should focus on. There's I'm sure there's the same game where you are, but I was told one time that tag you're in. Do you guys have the same?
Yeah, exactly the same. Yep.
And then the game called hide and go seek are actually 2 really important games for kids to learn, because both of them involve real-time tactical decision making that may one day save your damn life. If someone shows up with a weapon, hide and go seek might be the same thing that saves your life. Yeah. And so up until 15 or so, I think you should be exposed is the word I always use, to as many sports and disciplines as you can. I often joke I might have been the greatest kayaker in the world. I could have been the best saber fighter the world's ever seen, but I was never exposed to those sports. And because of where I grew up, South San Francisco, it's American football and it's track and field. And so fortunately, I'm certainly not optimal for an international level discus thrower. I'm too short. But, that's where I was a hotbed of track and field. And so that's what you did.
Yes.
So you want to be exposed to as many sports as you can. I don't think the level of competition should be here in the United States, we call it scholastic. So school kid competition level. I'm not a big believer. Now I know in Europe, you guys use the club system, and in Ireland is like the GAA, which I think as I look over, the most positive model I've ever seen for sports is the GAA, the Gaelic Athletic. The fact that you can play for the same team, literally from age 4 to age 80. If you can get out there with your hurley, you can still play. That's a very good model for. It's more than just sports. It's communal, and it's all those other things we want, the boons and blessings of athletic competition. Truly, by about age 16, there should be some indicators. Now, we're going to talk about, do you want to keep it broken into athletes and the general population?
Yes, I think so. I think because people will be able to identify themselves within that.
Yeah, if I forget one, just say, okay, you forgot sports. Now, let's stick with the sports first, okay? And then that'll be easier for me. So when you hit about age 16, if you didn't do early specialization and you did get a real blend of games, sports, low-end physical education stuff, there should be some clear indicators about what you're good at. And that's a tough one. When I advise people about career options, I don't tell them to go with their passion. I tell them to go with their good. What comes natural to you? Because maybe your passion is, constitutional law. That's great. But if you're not a good debater and you're not good at retaining information, you're going to have to work way too hard,
Yes.
If you have the gift of teaching, it's much easier to be a teacher than if you don't. And if you're that tall it's much easier to be great in basketball than it is if you're this tall.
Yeah.
So there should be some indicators. And I would always recommend, certainly it's nice if you love the sport, but if it comes easily and naturally to you, you should really, it's interesting because the sport that came most naturally to me in my whole life was judo. By my second session in judo, I was probably the best match fighter in my group. And this was a group of guys who'd been around a long time. But I was the youngest of 6, and I knew how to fight. I was used to fighting for every meal. So when you get to about 16 or so, you should try to align, basically I always say genetics and geography. So your genetics is a big, if you're a fast twitch monster and you live in our state called Iowa, you're going to be a wrestler. If you're in Bulgaria, you're going to be an Olympic lifter. And if you're in Canada, you're going to be a hockey player. So your genetics mixed with your geography are very important. Again, we talked earlier before we came on about I never played rugby. Well, why didn't I play rugby? Because there is no rugby where I'm from. There is now, but there wasn't then. It wasn't there. So when you get to about 16, it would now be time to specialize. And here in the States, in certain sports that might be 14 or 15, but even then, you're really not going to be, especially as a male because of puberty, you're not going to really know until about 16 generally. And now comes the heartbreaking part of what I talk about with sports. So if you're not being paid by age 22, we don't have to talk about being an athlete anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's over. And it's heartbreaking for people to hear that. But you can stay a professional athlete into your 40s in some sports and maybe longer with some of the Olympic sports. But generally, if it ain't done by 22, the party's over. So you have a very narrow window. And that's why I think not specializing early is so important because, if mommy and daddy raise you to be a tennis player and you discover by age 16, you're just not very good, but you've never lifted weights. You've never played a team sport. So you don't have the skills of like in soccer, your football, in rugby, in American football, in basketball, there's the triangulation of teammates. Well, if you've played soccer, football, and then you go play basketball, even though one's a foot game and one's a hand game, they're still both. The triangles are the key.
Yes.
So the team concept, there's skills you might have to pick up, but the concepts are the same. Whereas if you just played tennis, the opponent was always apart from you, separated from, literally by a net.
Yeah.
Now I'm punching you in the face with my elbow. You don't have the full skill set you need to be an athlete at the next level, which is kind of fun to say out loud. If you never lifted, because a lot of the rich kid sports, you don't need a lot of body mass. But if you've never lifted weights and you decide to play rugby at 17 and you weigh 55 kilos, you got a road to go. And so basically from 16 to 22 is a very, very steep accelerating mountain. And you have to do a lot of things in a relatively short amount of time. Now, when I say 6 or 7 years out loud now, it's like, well, that's a lot of time. But it's not necessarily when you're, that's not even 2 Olympics,
Yeah, exactly. Good point.
Now, I use Nick Rain's numbers from FitRank. So from 16 to 35 for the general population, I lump everybody into this. Now, there's certain important things, and we can look on this one of 2 sides, Tom. It's up to you. But there's a whole NOTS list, NOTS. Do not do this. And there's a whole bunch of things that are probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm to the point now as an American looking around, the not list is even bigger. do not get fat from 16 to 35.
Okay. Yeah.
Pizza and beer are not your friend, because the adipose tissue you put on at 16 to 35 ain't going anywhere. Art Devaney was asked by a woman at a workshop one time, what's the best thing to lose fat? And he replied famously, don't get fat in the first place.
Yeah.
Of course, she wanted to kill him, but that was absolutely the correct answer. And so from 16 to 35, I would cultivate some level of, and now from the information we have from Heidegger and those German scientists in the 40s and 50s, we also know that we all recede in strength as we age. Now, you asked me about this, and Saturday morning I had lifted an Olympic lifting meet. Now, I haven't lifted in a meet in 3 years because of a surgery. The platform wasn't good and I couldn't move my feet. But I snatched 85 and clean and jerked 105. Those are not great lifts for me, but it's been 3 years and I just wanted to get back on the platform. Now, you're going to have listeners who might say, wait, the 63-year-old man clean and jerked 105. And I'll say, yeah, I'm embarrassed to say that out loud. Because I'm coming in high, and yes, I'm getting weaker as I age, but I've got so much more ceiling room, so that even though I can only clean and jerk 105 now, I can still clean and jerk 105.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the stronger you get from 16 to 35, the longer that's going to stay in your life. So one of the reasons we want to, so I guess there's two sides to 16 to 35. One is to stay as lean as you possibly can, as reasonably as you can. Mm-hmm. So you want to have the habits of eating vegetables, eating fermented foods, drinking water, avoiding caloric beverages, getting your sleep in. And, wear your seatbelt. There's, floss your teeth, all that stuff that is true. Take care of the basics of health. If you don't take care of your dental health, the teeth you have at 17, that's it. You don't get a new set. So any of those things, anything you do at 16 to 35 it's like saving money. It might be a pain to push away from the beer and pizza, but when you're 65, you'll be glad you did.
Yes.
So from 16 to 35, I would, I like what Rusty Moore says. Rusty Moore writes about, he calls it the yacht body.
Yeah.
Get very strong, but stay very lean. Get as strong as you physically can, as lean as you possibly can. So, he believes in irritation, hyperirritation. The more tension you have,
yes.
Which, by the way, which is of course one of the secrets to strength, is that squeeze the bar, squeeze the ground, pull the floor apart, do what make the knots in your body and all that to get as much tension as you can and stay as lean as you can. It's not bad advice, Mm-hmm. You probably want all your listeners. You probably want to do a 600 kilo deadlift. No, I'm joking. Just get as strong.
At least, yeah.
Get as strong as you physically can. I would, ballpark numbers, double body weight deadlift, press body weight, either military or bench. Be able to do a couple pull-ups, and that's true for male or female. You don't have to go crazy on it. Just get relatively strong at your body.
Mm-hmm. Look like you lift a little.
Exactly. Look like you lift a little bit. And when you take your shirt off on the beach, let's just say it this way: if you're at a nude beach, people know you're male. Okay. Sorry. There shouldn't be too much. As I one time said in a poem, you don't want that frowning fudge over the belt buckle, So now after that, so in the next stage, and Nick uses the numbers 36 to 55. Okay. It's interesting because if you nailed 16 to 35, you're okay.
You set yourself up for success, right?
Yeah. The only thing is, at about 36 to 55, that's when the game changes. You'll talk to somebody, be like, here's the weird thing. I weigh as much as I used to those in college in 1996, but now I'm fat. Well, what happens from 36 to 55 is the body composition of the body changes. You get less muscle mass, less lean body mass, and more fat. The scale might have the exact same number, but you're softening up. So at 36 to 55, I push. This is the beginning when you actually should train more and more like a bodybuilder, focusing on building up lean body mass. This is probably the time we're going to actually, 36 to 55 is where your nutrition has to be smarter. This is where you're probably going to have to start looking at things like intermittent fasting, occasionally skipping a meal, however you want to read fasting, okay? It doesn't have to be religious and like go online and God, people will kill each other over the word. This is probably when you want to do those, this can be really for your health kinds of things. This is when the dentist, the eye doctor, the annual medical exams become very important. Catch things as early as you can at these ages. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about cancers or terrible diseases. I'm talking about edging, the edges, Whereas if you see your cholesterol edging up, I'm not a cholesterol Nazi. I don't really care about it that much. But if you go from this number, then this number, then this number, mm-hmm. you're trending. So you want your HDL to trend in a certain direction. You want your heart rate. I wouldn't mind seeing your heart rate trending down, your resting heart rate trending down. This is the time for those year-to-year kind of big picture things. I give blood as often as I can, and one of the reasons I give blood is that they do they take your temperature, they take your pulse, they do your blood pressure, they test your hematocrit, they test a couple of other things, and they also test for certain diseases. So, mm-hmm. So gentle listeners, I can tell you from in the last 2 months, I do not have an STD. I'm very proud of that. I don't have.
That's the title of the show. Dan does not have an STD.
So I don't have HIV. I don't have AIDS. I don't have an STD. I don't have. At the time, I didn't have coronavirus. And that's all done. And it's also very good for me, and it's very good for the community. So donating blood and one of the reasons I donate blood is I get that every few months. Yeah. Whatever, I get that little, and I get a chance to see where I'm trending. Yeah. So that's kind of from 36 to 55. This is the time you want to start bodybuild. This is when mobility, if you do have injuries from your youth, auto accidents, athletics, this is the time to spend more time, getting that mobility around. Flexibility, probably not as important. Flexibility tends to be a neurological trick. Certainly, if you feel you're just starting to lock up, look into some other habits and lifestyles. Is this okay so far?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then comes 55 plus. Hi, I'm Dan John, and I'm 55 plus. And this is when remember when you saved money when you're 18, 19, 20, and then you get to take it out when you're 65? This is when you get to take all that money out of the bank.
Right.
So all the money you put into your fitness, your body composition, your general health, now pay dividends. It does not mean that you're going to live to be 130. My coach, Dick Nottmeyer, famously told me one time, longevity is about 50% DNA. Very often you'll hear about some great fitness guru dying at age, here it states, Jack LaLanne died at 96. Isn't that heroic? Mm-hmm. Except that his brother, who never did a damn thing and smoked, lived to 97. So if you got the DNA, you got the DNA.
Yes.
40% is lifestyle. And I would say that's things like wearing the seatbelt, wearing the helmet when appropriate, learning, don't smoke cigarettes, the annual physical. I mean, there's nothing to be too fancy. And the last 10%, Tom, is luck, just pure luck. England has a great. You're English, right?
Well, I live in England. My sort of family, one side of it's Scottish, other is English. Yeah.
So the good-looking part's Scottish. Okay. but England, Scotland have great traditions of warriors, and let's be honest, sometimes it's you went left instead of right and you died. You left the building a minute too late and the semi truck rolled over you on the freeway. Sometimes it's luck. We all do stupid things and we get away with it, and sometimes we don't do stupid things and we don't. I'm always joking that they're going to find me dead in my car with the airbag deployed, with the seatbelt on, with a freshly used floss stick next to me and a glass of water, because sometimes it's just luck. So post 55, we don't focus so much on the quantity of life. We focus on the quality of life. And so that's when we're paying the dividends of all this smart stuff we've done our whole life. Okay?
Yes. So just to sort of recap a little bit some of the points there, it seems obviously we got the avoidance of early specialization unless you have those three things that you're pursuing. But for almost everybody, avoiding early specialization makes sense. And in that 16 to 35 bracket, it seems to me big focus on strength from a training perspective, but really you're trying to develop habits, lifestyle habits that are going to set the foundation for your whole life. Then when you transition to sort of 36 to 55, training shifts, we're looking more at building muscle mass or trying to at least train in a way that would build it, but that maybe is just retaining what we have.
Well, I like what you said. Actually, I don't mind the idea of 36 to 55 being a bodybuilder. I don't mind that if the base of strength was built before. Sure.
Okay. And another key element with training there is addressing mobility. But I suppose one of the points is usually by that age, most people have got themselves a job where they're sat down, large chunks of the day. Families are starting to take over. Maybe you're stuck on the sofa helping the kids with homework. These sort of factors, whereas when we're younger, we're just moving and we're getting that mobility. So bodybuilder with mobility work, but then the details on nutrition really start to matter. That's where you can't, having those habits in place is useful, but you might need to go beyond just, I've got some good habits here, really paying attention to some things. You mentioned intermittent fasting, for example. And then 55 plus, you talked about that quality over quantity, but one of the things it seems to me is almost like all the stuff you've done earlier on is like paying into your pension.
Yes.
And then if you've invested enough into your pension, as you said, it pays dividends, and then you can take that out in your later years and still be able to keep training. Now, that's the perfect model, right? That's what we're...
So when you get to 55 plus, people say, I'm just pouring myself some more tea here. People say, well, Dan, you don't like machines. I go, no, that's not true. Machines are fine if that's what you can work. If you got my old weightlifting coach, Dick Notmeyer, he's 90 years old, and he told me about a year ago, he's very sad because now he can either lift weights or walk and ride his bicycle every day, but he can't do both. And he's 89 years old complaining about this. So if Dick was to go work out on a machine at the sports center, that's great. So once you get to that 55 plus category, that's when so my toolkit probably, if you don't mind me just regressing real quick, from 16 to 35, my toolkit's going to be the barbell, the kettlebell, the pull-up bar, rings, mats, okay? When we slide into about 36 to 55, well, then it's going to be the same equipment, but whatever else is appropriate too. TRXs are fine, or suspension trainers, or, those little rubber bands, the rubber band training, and people come, they think I'm a hardcore gym, but we've got these big pads for your knees on the ground. Put the pads on the ground, protect the knee, don't be stupid. When you get to 56 plus, then the toolkit becomes literally anything. Anything is part of your toolkit.
Yes.
And by the way, probably the best thing you could do, if I was going to say, obviously, I'm going to tell you, strength train, appropriate nutrition, and then walking. Walking as the cure.
I think, it's so underrated.
It's stealing.
Walking.
It is stealing. My wife and I, when we spend about a month a year in a place called Galway. It's Western Ireland. In fact, it's sad I couldn't go this year because of a certain virus. But, there's that silly 10,000 step rule that's not true. It's an unusual day in Galway. We don't go 14,000, 15. When we get back to the States, one of the things we notice is that we don't creak as much at night.
Yeah. Okay.
So all that walking just seems to
kept things lubricated, kept things moving.
Well, the least appreciated system we have is the lymphatic system, and we know that the only way to work the lymphatic system is to pump it. And the best way to pump it is walking. Yes. And so, if you're pumping your lymphatic system, if you do get an ear infection, it's going to pump. It's going to pump and help that. If you do have a little bit of this, it's going to help over there. Okay, so good. I just want to make sure we were clear about the role of things like machines and tools around the house. And Grandpa only has a 15-pound dumbbell. Well, good for Grandpa. He only has a 6K dumbbell, 5K. Yeah.
So I think the important thing is then to realize that, all of these things, they're just tools, and it's about choosing the appropriate tool at the right stage, and for the individual. And because I think a lot of people maybe will say, Dan John's on, he's going to talk kettlebell, he's going to talk Olympic lifting, and it's going to be all that, nothing else, because people like to pigeonhole you, or they read one article, and therefore that is everything you've ever thought in that one article.
Yeah, you can't possibly have. I deal with that. That is my constant nightmare. I deal with what you just said there. Well, I thought you were a kettlebell guy. Well, didn't you see the video of me Olympic lifting on Saturday? Yeah. Well, that's not a kettlebell. It was an Olympic bar. Yeah.
And one of the important things, obviously, as someone who's done this, you also know the inherent benefits of or strengths of a certain tool and what that is best used for, versus another bit doesn't achieve that so well, but it's fantastic for a different stimulus or whatever, and realizing that. Well,
so I have right here. This is my phone, okay, and it's really good for calling people and some other things. But that hot pot I just used right there is also an electronic device, and it's really good for making tea.
Yeah,
I'm sure if you put water on top of this long enough, it would warm it up. That's how these are tools. And you mentioned strengths. Each tool has its own strength, but it also has its own limits. And I think the mistake a lot of people do, especially when they fall in love, especially with kettlebells and Olympic lifting, this is the answer to all questions. This is going to cure cancer. And the truth is, and these people, they now have kettlebells. Somebody told me they have up to 135 kilo kettlebells. What in the earth would you waste your money on? You're never going to use a damn thing. Now, I might have heard it wrong, but that's what I thought they said.
That's pretty damn heavy.
I saw a 92 kilo kettlebell last time I was in England. And that makes no sense to me.
The heaviest I've seen personally, I think I've seen a 40 kilo, so 88 pounds?
Yeah, I have a 48. I have the 48s, the 36s. I've got all those. But the truth is, the 32 is better in a lot of ways than those other ones. I tell you, the 48 sits in my gym a lot. The only person who moves it's me,
For what they're good for, most people aren't going to be handling that weight, right? But a 32 is going to be accessible to a whole lot more people.
So I got this 48 kilo kettlebell, but then I have an adjustable Olympic bar where Edna can use 20 and I can use 100 and what's my best? 136. So to press,
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. So thanks. I just want to make sure we're clear there. Good.
Excellent. So just one other thing I want to pick up on, because we talked about walking briefly, and we kind of both said how great it was and underrated. But I think for anyone listening, in that sort of 16 to 35 range, if you're talking about staying lean, it's like if you want a super simple way, is just get stronger. Don't eat like an idiot, and actually walk some places. People hate it. I suppose maybe being the age thing, maybe at the lower end of that bracket, because they're kind of stimulus junkies. They want instant gratification, want to feel like. But it's for a lot of people I work with, it's been a real game changer when it's simply you're going to get outside, not on a treadmill, but get outside, and it's just have 30 minutes walking, and not only the benefits of lymphatic system, burning some calories. But I mean, the headspace is great too. But it's one of those ones that when people realise, they're like, this is phenomenal. But it's amazing how hard it is to get someone to convince someone. Sorry, just go for a walk.
Just go for a walk, and it's an uphill battle. It's not very sexy. That's an issue we have in the States here. Is people want some cutting edge thing, but the truth is, I tell people this. Here's one: eat vegetables at every meal. Wait, eat vegetables at breakfast? Well, okay. Is there a law that did the Queen command no vegetables at breakfast? Off with their heads? No. And it's funny, when you start talking like that, most people I work with, and there's been some research on this, when they do a food log, there's a couple things that I ask them to do, and I got this from Josh Hillis. But the one thing is at the end of the week, list out every single food you ate. Mm-hmm. In America, that number is 14.
Wow. Yeah. I knew it was going to be many. I didn't know it was going to be that low. That's incredible.
So, like I always say, if the 14 was salmon, cottage cheese, eggs, coffee, blueberry, where this is going, or oatmeal, then we're okay. But it's not going to be macaroni and cheese, bread,
pizza,
which is bread with cheese. You suddenly
exactly variations of bread with cheese.
Basically, you eat bread with cheese 6 times a day. Okay, so why am I putting on weight? Well, let's go back. And your gut biome doesn't need it. Yeah. So that so those would be the kind of things. Yeah, and it can be, and I hate to say it can be that simple, because there's an issue, and it's taken me a long time to appreciate this in my life. Just because something's simple doesn't mean it's easy. Like I can teach the discus to you with stretch 1, 2, 3. That's the system I use. Just because I made it simple doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Mm-hmm. It's going to be, you and I are going to have some long days ahead of us. Yeah. So hope that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've sort of talked through some of the, if we were planning this out with all your years of wisdom now, for someone, the right way to do it, and we'll get into, if we don't mind, a little bit more detail just quickly, because people think, okay, cool, train for strength. What does that mean? So I know you have different very very popular programs with some principles that you can follow, sort of like easy strength, these sort of things. But in that 16 to 35, we're training for strength. How's that looking? Because I know that someone's going to go, so I have to do 5-3-1, right? Or
well, here, what's funny is if they did 5-3-1, Jim Wendler's 5-3-1 twice a week, and did that from age 16 to age 35, you'd have a very happy 63-year-old, I think. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So basically, I break weightlifting down into 5 movements: push, pull, hinge, squat, loaded carry. I suggest that the push, pull, and squat numbers be the exact same.
Yep. Okay.
So if you're doing 3 sets of 8 in the push, you're doing 3 sets of 8 in the pull, 3 sets of 8 in the squat. With the hinge, it depends on whether you're doing a ballistic hinge, kettlebell swing versus, say, a dumb deadlift. And with loaded carries, which are just pick weights up and walk with them, just do them. Today was a loaded carry workout, and it's interesting, Tom. I've been getting ready for this Olympic lifting meet for a while. And I haven't been doing my loaded carries because, at 63, you can only chase so many rabbits. I cannot believe the amount of work capacity I've lost. But I've been Olympic lifting, man. It wasn't like I was out smoking dope and, eating junk food. Yeah. But that was interesting.
So quickly on that loaded carries thing. Okay, so you just pick it up and walk. We want to train energy systems with that. It has a whole host of benefits, but if we're looking at that as one of our key energy systems trainings, you wanting to try and like the whole spectrum, and how would you maybe plan that? Are you thinking?
I don't plan it.
Right.
So I never plan
Okay.
loaded carries. We just kind of go by feel. Today I did farmer walks, an exercise called the Sparrow Hawk. That's 8 goblet squats, suitcase carry, 7 goblet squats, suitcase carry, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you switch hands on the suitcase carry every time. So you don't put the bell down for about 2 or 3 minutes. And I'm not sure how many reps that is. But so the idea on loaded carries is you have a load and you're moving it. I call them moving planks most of the time. So we also have some where you do, say, 8 goblet squats and then take off in a sprint instantly. So that's still part of the loaded carry family. I consider hill sprints or sled pulls loaded carries, putting a heavy backpack on. So it's, to me, in fact, as soon as I get done with this call, I'm going to put my ankle weights on. They weigh just over 2 kilos. And my hand weights were about 1.5 kilos. And then I'll go for another, I walked a mile this morning with them on, and I'll walk a mile this afternoon with them on. Even though that's very light, I still consider that a loaded carry. But I'm going to go for half an hour versus when I do the 8 goblet squats followed by a sprint, man, that's 20-something seconds. So I get my variation in by a bit of randomness. But if you think about war, rugby, American football, soccer, football, basketball, if you look at the games, there's a staccato to the game.
Yes.
And so when I'm training people, even as a thrower, it's funny because this stuff all helps throwers. When you get ready to throw something, it's not a linear, faster. There's dips and dives. There's, like in the discus, it goes, whoa, whoa. And so I think that staccato nature of just kind of do whatever is superior than planning it out. And here's the funny thing is, if you come to my gym and you've never done it before, we're going to do every carry the world's ever seen with you. So that's going to be a miserable workout for all of us. 2 days later, you're back, gone, thankfully out of here, good. We'll just do an easy suitcase carry. So you naturally vary it with how many people you have and how things are going. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, cool. So we got the 5 sort of movement patterns. That's a foundation of that strength program. You mentioned 3x8. Just to clarify for anyone listening, you don't have to only do 3x8, presumably.
You broke up for just a moment, but so on push, pull, hinge, it can be 5 sets of 5. It can be 3 sets of 5. It can be 5 sets of 3. Whatever you do, as long as the totals come out the same. Okay. If you're an American, I would have you pull more than push. That would be the only thing I might change. Yes. And then on the hinge, but I mean, here's a magic workout for you. Do this for 3 days and then shift. But 3 sets of 8 in a overhead press, horizontal pull, front squat. And then go over to the trap bar, deadlift, or whatever you guys call it, hex bar, and just go heavy up until your technique looks ugly. Then grab a heavy kettlebell or dumbbell and walk around with that one-handed, switch hands, go home. Do that Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Next week, go a little heavier, go 3 sets of 5, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The next week, do bench press, pull up, back squat, kettlebell swings, and farmer walks. Do that, for 3 sets of 8, then 3 sets of 5. There you go. And just kind of keep playing around with something that simple.
Rinse, repeat. So it's all about doing the basics exceptionally well.
Very much so. And if you need mobility work between each set of presses, get on the ground and maybe work your neck, this way, that way. Do some rocking, do some if you need wrist work or thumb work, doesn't matter. Work a little mobility. Gentle listeners. So flexibility, well, it's a neurological trick, but mobility is the free movement around joints. And
Yes.
what you'll begin to pick up with is that mobility is far more important as I do all these movements in the thing. Mobility is probably more important than being able to touch your toes or act like a gymnast or something like that. Because when the joints start to freeze, there's where the issues start to happen.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's that difference. I think that distinction between flexibility and mobility is an important one. Often people just think they're one and the same, but they're not.
And in truth, sometimes flexibility can get in the way of other things. I have found that when I have the word fit comes from the old Nordic to knit, like knit a sock or something like that.
Okay.
So what I have found in my coaching is that the more knitted a person is, the better their flexibility is on flexibility tests. Mm-hmm. But if you spend all your time bench pressing and you sit like this at a computer all day and then you drive around, I mean, I can trick your body into doing well on the flexibility test. But if you come in, you have a naturally tall carriage, your heart is, proud heart, you want your heart,
yes.
Proud heart, you're tall, your thumbs are, pointing back, your hip flexors are loose. You'll do great on those flexibility tests without having to do any magic tricks to make you do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what I mean by well knitted.
Yes, I think, and so it's like that active range, what you can move yourself through, as opposed to just lying there and someone forcing a static stretch in. Is if for listeners, if they're trying to get some kind of example of a visual difference. And then the other thing I think with that sort of flexibility thing, if someone's kind of like in quotes tight, often it's like, well, as you mentioned, it's the nervous system's controlling that. There's a reason why it's tight. Perhaps it's a lack of stability or strength, and it's not going to let you go to places where it doesn't feel safe. So I suppose the one thing to know from my point of view is if you are in that situation, it's pretty much a red flag. You need to start assessing what's the issue. So, well, on that subject, what are some assessments that would be for people to run like their own, over here we call it an MOT or whatever on the
Ready?
car every now and again. Yeah, hit me with.
Okay, I'll give you my book. Can you go? Test number 1: can you stand on 1 foot for 10 seconds? Mm-hmm. If you cannot, I send you to a medical doctor. There is something wrong with you. Now, I have a whole bunch on my YouTube channel of practice. For example, I'm at an age now that when I brush my teeth, I stand on 1 foot to practice my balance. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of stuff. When I'm doing my walks, I step on and off curbs a lot on purpose. Okay. So that's 1, stand on 1 foot. 2 are 2 measurements. If you weigh over 135 kilos, I send you off to the doctor, I send you to the eye doctor, and I send you to the dentist. Because if you're over 135 kilos, you've ruined the statistics. Mm-hmm. So, but here's the thing. If you have terrible teeth, and I tell you to eat vegetables, you can't.
Yes, that's true.
The eye doctor is going to be able to see things like diabetes, cholesterol, all kinds of stuff. So those 3 tests are very inexpensive, and I send you in. If not, I don't care if you're 134.9, you stay with me, you're good. It's a statistical number in the sand. So stand on 1 foot, 2 measurements. The second measurement is big. How tall are you? And then your waistline. Your waistline should be either at or under half your height.
Okay.
So if you're 2 meters, 1 meter. Okay. I think I'm 184 or 186 or 188, one of those. My waistline should be 92, 90, whatever, 93, 94. Okay. Mm-hmm. If it's over that number, no matter what you said you want to do, I train you like a body composition client.
Okay.
If your waist is over half your height, you are a body composition client. And so I have a Venn diagram. So take 3 circles and put them together. One of them is going to be body composition, one of the circles. Okay?
Yes.
Then 3 questions. Question number 1. how many pillows do you need at night to sleep comfortably? If it's more than one, you are a mobility client.
Okay.
I'll get hands at workshops. Oh, they hate this. No offense to 51% of the world's population, but women hate this question. So I do yoga every day, and I have 3 pillows. And then you're a mobility client. But I said I do yoga. Yeah, you do yoga, so you might have a hyper flexible back, and you've turned off your hamstrings. But you don't really control your legs. They hurt at night because there's something wrong. So you are a mobility client. So another one of those 3 rings in the Venn diagram, this one is mobility. Now, here's the thing.
Okay.
Many American men are body composition. These are called 2s in my language, 2. They're mobility and body composition clients. Now, here's what's interesting, is when we address their mobility, they sleep better at night. When they sleep better at night, it speeds up the fat loss. So this is why this is so important to have a nice vision of things. Okay, the next 2 questions are for me to find out what kind of client the person is. Do you eat colorful vegetables every day? And Tom, what do they all answer?
Sorry, say
What
again.
does every person answer?
Well, presumably they say yes, or they claim they eat potato.
Well, they say yes.
But the truth is no.
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
The next question, do you exercise for half an hour every day? And guess what everybody answers?
Yeah.
And because I have enough skin in the game, I can lean across and say, well, then I can't work with you because you're already doing everything I was going to have you do. And then we get to the truth. And this is a much more nuanced and developed thing in the book. But let's just say this. I want the client who says, I hate vegetables. I'm not going to eat them. Because at least I have someone who's answering honestly.
Yes.
I don't want to hear about what you were like when you were 15 years old and you were the best cricket player in your county. I don't want to hear that crap. I want to find out where you are now. So stand on 1 foot, 2 measurements, 3 questions. Okay? 1, 2, 3. And then there's 4 physical tests. But if you fail the first one, we're done. Can you hold a plank for 2 minutes? And here's how to get somebody to fail a plank test. Don't say anything. And then when 1 minute passes, say, halfway.
Everyone quits at that point.
If you fail the test, the plank test, we are finished. The third circle in the Venn diagram, so we got body composition. That's half the height, waistline, half height.
Yes.
We got mobility. That's the number of pillows. And then the third circle is yes, no on the plank test. Many women in America are what we would call 4s. They are strength and body composition clients. So as they get stronger, their body composition improves. As their body composition improves, they get relatively stronger. So working those 2 things together makes the magic. In the middle is a 7, and that's the person who's failed the body comp, the mobility, and the strength test. But here's the funny thing about 7s is that they're all convinced, every single one of them, is that they put their mind to it, that they're going to turn everything around in a weekend. Boy, once I put my mind to it, I could stick things down. Well, where the hell's your mind been for the last 50 years, man? Okay. The other 3 tests aren't important, but let's just give them to you right now. I do a farmer walk with body weight, and just use trap bar, standard numbers, like up to 60 kilos, 60. You could even do it up to 90 kilos, 90, and everybody over 90, 100, And that's if you're testing in big groups, Like when I work with big groups, I've tested, I got to say probably 50 people I didn't know at once. But I had people, it was a military thing. And the funny thing is, almost within about 2 minutes, the 60 kilo bar was a 90 kilo bar because we only had 1 or 2. And then we were able to get, boom, 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 boom. And the 100 kilo bar very quickly was a third 90 kilo bar because the bulk of the people were between 60 and 90 kilos.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
So, and down and back. And what I'd like, if you can set up a cone or something like that, and it could be, for us, it's 100 meters, but it doesn't matter. So a cone at 50, and you want them to make as many loops as they can. But the first time, and then the next one is a standing long jump. And I expect to be able to jump expect to be able to jump your height.
Okay.
This is standing long jump, not standing high jump. So don't freak out. But here's the thing, Tom, that you're going to miss. The farmer walk and the standing long jump don't test the client. They test us. 6 weeks from now, we do the farmer walk and the standing long jump test. Both of those better have improved. If they haven't, our programming sucks.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
And the final test for the 4 is either the Brazilian get back up test or any kind of eyes-on evaluation on how they go from the floor to standing to the floor. If they have to put both hands on the ground, they have to.
Okay.
If it takes them 5 minutes to get up and down, that'll give you an idea of. In fact, it's not a bad idea to video that on day 1 versus week 6. It's not a bad idea because then the person can see the simple progress they have made and of course how much safer they are. So that's the 1, 2, 3, 4 assessment. And at the end of that assessment, I know basically what you need. So, ideally from 16 to 35, you would basically be a strength person. Basically and mobility. Basically from 36 to 55, you probably want to be all 3. You probably want to be a program, maybe 6 weeks of strength, 6 weeks of bodybuilding, but mixed in mobility all the time. And then past 55, 56 plus, you'll take a hard look at it but you'll be much more laser focused on a weakness. If it's mobility, now we're a mobility, I'm a yoga guru and mobility genius, okay? If it's strength, you're a power lifter. If it's body composition, we're going to have to really jump on that as fast as we can.
Yeah, okay, absolutely. That makes sense. So actually, you were talking about, you're doing 6 weeks of this, so strength, maybe 6 weeks of hypertrophy, or bodybuilding, and then the mobility is mixed in. What about downtime, time away? So someone looking in at this is like, does that mean I train 52 weeks of the year from the age of 16 to, when I die? Obviously, taking some time off is probably beneficial. Hard to do once you're in love with training. What's your advice to someone about giving themselves some downtime?
Natural time off. So when I go to Galway, I don't lift weights the entire month. I do jump in. I go to Salt Hill, a place called Black Rock, and I dive into the ocean and freeze my body off. I walk, 10,000 steps easy a day, and I don't worry about it. If you go on a vacation with your family, I don't want to hear about your workout in your hotel room. Just enjoy it, relax. If you miss a day because of a birthday party or taking something to the doc, that's fine. I like natural breaks. But here's the thing. If you're one of my people and you have a doctor's appointment, I say, that's fine. I want you to acknowledge that it's a day off. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes,
I think
you should organize time off. But I have found in my experience, time off finds the training system.
Okay. Yeah, I think with Gen Pop people, certainly life's going to get in the way, and that will naturally happen. And of course, we have things like Christmas for you guys, obviously Thanksgiving. That presumably from then to year end is a time when lots of people are downing tools when it comes to lifting.
Well, and I tell people, it came up in Pat Flynn's podcast about a week ago. Somebody asked, what do you do about the holidays? And I say, celebrate them. But here's the thing. You can't have celebration 366 days a year on a leap year. You have to be an adult. I mean, you can have, give me a number. I mean, if it's 25, I don't care. If it's 104 celebrations a year, I'm fine with that. It can't be every single day.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And trust me, and that's going to sound stupid when I say that, but really the problem you guys are having is that people go to the gym too much. Is that really what you're saying? The biggest problem we're having with our population is that they're working out too often.
Too often. Well, so not on average, but there are those people.
But I'm just saying.
It's very much the opposite of that for the average of the population. But there's those that are in it that then seem, it's everything, and then they become addicted. They're that stimulus junkie. Almost they feel like it's their self-worth is attached to "Did I train today?" type thing.
It's for some reason I thought of the movie The Full Monty. There's a question about a certain thing women have, and he goes about being too large, and the one guy goes, "Didn't know they could be." This is one of those questions like, really, this is the problem we're going to focus on. My problem is, and I'm telling you, is I eat too clean. All I eat is vegetables, good protein, and drink water. And then I sleep 9-10 hours a night. Can you help me? That's the problem we all hear. That's the one. That's the one I'm constantly fighting against people working out so smart.
People eat too clean, train too hard, train too often. This is a terrible situation to be in.
They're 8, 9, 10 hours of sleep. I can't work.
Yeah. No, they're not going to get. No one's going to see results that way. It's crazy. Dan, we're sort of rolling up on time. We've overrun a little bit. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but it's been really, really valuable. I think some great takeaway points for everybody there in terms of visualizing training as a career rather than just that instant. What am I doing right now, this very second, that's going to make me feel good, and what makes most sense at each stage along that journey. And then I really love you walking us through those assessments, because now all those tests are something someone can do themselves, right? You don't need any special equipment except for something heavy enough to do your farmer's walks. People can run their own assessments on themselves, and simple check there. And if they've got anything that's flagging up, then they know, okay, something needs to happen. Perhaps they need to go and seek out some help, some coaching, or see a doctor. And then that natural time off will present itself. And I think not to beat yourself up about that when it's time to be off, enjoy that, embrace that, and when it's time to train hard, train hard.
I said, I had Saturday I had a weightlifting meet, and then I had a deep tissue massage Sunday, which is probably a mistake because it just beat me up. And then when I went to work out today and yesterday, I didn't have it. But I worked out both days. But at the same time, I also gave myself permission not to worry about everything. So one of the things that might help thinking about the issue we're joking about, but it's still true, is, I'm my harshest judge. But if I keep reminding myself as where I am in this journey, it's a little bit better. Don't harsh on yourself because you eased up one day, 2 days after a weightlifting meet.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, so what's happening in your world? And so you've just competed this past Saturday. You said it's been 3 years since you were last on the platform. Have you got other competitions lined up? Were you bitten by the bug of competing?
Oh yeah, as best I can. I mean, with the COVID, I've been planning to come out of retirement as a thrower for a couple of years. I formally retired July 24th, 2010. But with COVID, that's not. But I'm going to do the 10,000 swing challenge in January, and then really a lot of what I want to do this year. I'm never going to be any movie star or cover of any perfume ad, but one of my goals for this year is now is to look better, feel better, that kind of thing. Just simple stuff. I got a grandson coming in May. So I want to make sure
that's exciting.
I want to make sure I do the things that will keep me around when he's a teenager, and I have to kick him in the teeth.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We've got to show him the ropes
That's
as well. Make sure he doesn't start specializing
right.
too early. Okay, cool. Well, so yeah, that's very exciting news. Well, yeah, congratulations. I look forward to seeing the updates of the junior and then the next successful Olympian thrower, perhaps. Who knows if they're going to head that way. But Dan, take a moment now just to I'm sure people are interested in knowing, okay, where can we find out a little bit more about this? I know that you've got resources people can download or can purchase. So please take a moment just to tell us where those things are.
So I have a massive kind of online library called danjohn.net. And there, if you decide to print everything off, you better buy a new printer. It's about 3 reams of paper. And it's just go in and, it'll be confusing, shop around. Then I got my paid site called Dan John University. But there's a thing in there called a workout generator, which I think is, I'm not selling this to you folks. I'm just saying you type, you answer a question. You just press buttons, but you press buttons about what equipment you have. You press a few buttons about how many days, and then it kicks out these personalized workouts from you that you can still change. For example, you can look at the exercise library that comes right there on the page and click until you find an exercise that you feel like doing that day. I got to tell you,
okay.
I was told years ago that my brain works like a spreadsheet. If then.
Okay.
Well, Brian, who put the site together, said that it was so easy because all my coaching is if then. My 1, 2, 3, 4 assessment, if. Did you notice how many if-thens we had? And so we're we're taking all the work I've done, and it's funny because it's made for the computer.
Yeah, everything's automatically indexed by the way your brain works.
Yeah, it's weird because
if-then.
It doesn't always make me the best human in the world, but boy, it makes me easy to work with as a coach. Because I spend I spend more time if-thenning than, like when we get back to early specialization, if you choose to do early specialization, then. I didn't say it's wrong. I'm just saying, don't forget that comma, then. there's a then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there's always a then.
Then pick chess, golf, or classical music.
Yeah.
Right, brilliant. Okay, I'll make sure the show notes have all those links in them. So, guys, go check those out. Get involved. Dan also has his own podcast, which is well worth a listen. And if you've got questions, he does a great job of answering those. So, fire those in, and then you'll get an answer from the man himself. Dan, that's it from me. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat.
This was a delight and a joy. Thanks so much. Okay.
That wraps up today's episode. Thank you so much for investing your time with us. We really appreciate it. If you enjoyed what you heard and took value from it, please do me a favour by heading to iTunes right now, subscribing to the show and leaving a review. Positive reviews, like 5 stars, hint hint, really help the ranking of the show and will help us to spread the word and keep getting top class guests on. Make sure to follow Breaking Muscle on social media and me at Tom McCormick, that's TOMMACCORMICK on Instagram. Bye for now, and I'm looking forward to catching you on the next episode of the Breaking Muscle podcast.